Napster was great. You could download your lit song and listen to it on your shitty computer speakers. But as soon as you could transfer that to a CD, which was the popular format at the time, it was game over.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Before we start, if you want to give me some money, you can just go to patreon.com/thiswastthescene, and you can do it there. Thick Records was formed in 1994 by Detroit native Zak Einstein, who started the label when he relocated to Chicago after graduating from Michigan State University. Early releases include albums from Chicago ska-punkers the Blue Meanies, Alton, Illinois' Judge Nothing, Seattle's grunge rockers Truly, and the Omaha-based Commander Venus. Blue Meanies singer Billy Spunke joined Einstein and signed multiple Chicago punk rock artists including the Tossers, the Arrivals, and the Methadones. Thick released picture disc vinyl including 7-inch records from Alkaline Trio, At the Drive-In, All, and Citizen Fish. The label also released several compilations documenting Chicago rock and punk music. The compilations included 2000's Magnetic Curses, a Chicago Punk Rock Compilation which included music from Gaza Strippers, Alkaline Trio, and Pegboy. The compilation Oil, Chicago Punk Refined, a 2003 release from the label, included tracks from 19 Chicago area punk acts including Rise Against, Lawrence Arms, The Tossers, Plain White Tees, Bob Nanna, and Local H. In 2004, Einstein moved the label to Los Angeles, and the last label releases came in 2007 with CDs from The Brokedowns, and 7 Story Mountain. Thank you, Monica Ebley, or as I call you, Monica Victory Records, for the intro to Zach, who I got in the Skype, and this is what we chat about. Brendan Kelly, Rise Against, picture disc vinyl, the palette of Blue Meanies CDs, the letter the Blue Meanies sent to MCA, what did the record label look like on a day-to-day basis, the At the Drive-In Burning Airlines split, turning an oil production factory into a studio, what really killed the music industry, what 2008 did to the label, and a ton more. Before we start, check out my animation company, drive80.com, drive80.com, if you're looking for an explainer video for your tech company, or if you just have a hard time explaining what your product or service is, I can do it in 60 seconds with an explainer animation. I also do custom Instagram stickers, so if you are a real estate agent like Mr. John Cheese, then you might want to brand your Instagram stories with your face, doing shit like open house or for sale or some weird fucking quote that you do, because real estate agents love to have their face over everything. So go check that out, drive80.com. You can also email me at mike@drive80.com if you have questions. That's all I got to say, so feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. So Monica introduced us, and I started talking to her through like the Instagram because she'll just message and she'll be like, oh, I like that episode, or we've talked about Victory Records here and there. Like Tony's come up a bunch. Obviously, Victory is a big label that will come up a bunch, especially depending on who you are. They're either going to have most likely it seems there's a negative connotation with them, but she worked there, and then I posted something on Instagram trying to get in touch with people, and I put you guys, and she said, oh, I know Zach. So how do you guys know each other?
Oh, man. I met her when she was a teenager, probably through mutual friends, Fireside Bowl shows. I think before she started at Victory, she was looking for a job in the industry, and I had introduced her to a friend of mine from ASCAP. So she started in the business with ASCAP. It was I helped her get that job. She was always, she was one of those scene people who are always around. So we kind of always had a beer and a chuckle. She's cool, man.
Yeah, she's really nice. She's always especially when it's Chicago based, because I talked to Double J. Do you know him? He's now the creative director over at Epitaph, but he worked for Victory for a while.
I saw that podcast. I don't know who that is.
Okay. I just, it's one of those things where if I say I'm from Jersey, someone's like, oh, do you know this person? I'm like, it's not a small state, but I mean, there's a lot of people there, so most likely. But
hey, do you know the Bouncing Souls? I hear they're from Jersey.
I know you're asking that as a joke, but I only saw them one time, and they played at the Lifetime reunion show in 2006. So that was I think that's the one and only time I've ever seen them play.
I've only seen them once, and it was somewhat recent myself, maybe 3-4 years ago. One of my buddies here in LA, her first show ever was Bouncing Souls show. So I took her to see Bouncing Souls at the Roxy, and it was pretty insane. Yes, my 30-something-year-old friend stage diving is pretty funny.
So I used to live in LA. Where in LA do you live?
I'm in Los Feliz. I'm directly under the observatory.
So did you just go directly out there from Chicago, or was there different stops?
So I started, I graduated from Michigan State on a Friday afternoon, was living comfortably in Chicago by that Sunday and stayed there for 10 years. And then it was like sleeting rain one November night in 2000, I think it was 3. It was November. It was dark at 4:30. It was freezing rain, and my wife and I were just done with Chicago winters. So we loaded up the truck and moved to Beverly.
Yeah, I think that's usually the case when I'm from, as I said, from Jersey. So the winters are definitely worse in Chicago, where any state where you have to deal with snow for a giant amount of time, there's a point in your life where you're like, all right, I'm fucking done with this. I am getting out of here and going to where the sun is.
Chicago's the best city on earth about 3.5 months a year. Those aren't 3.5 concurrent months. They're chopped up here and there. And I miss Chicago, but not that much. I don't miss February.
Yeah, I'm so used to wearing shorts all the time. It's like,
where are you? Are you in North Carolina now?
Yeah, I'm in Raleigh.
Got it. And you have a design business? That's your day job?
I do animation.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, like explainer videos. I do graphic design, but I used to do that for clients, but I just started doing it for myself because I got sick of doing design work for clients because it was such a pain in the ass. But animation is it's insanely easy because no one knows how to do it. Like clients don't understand it, and it's not like you can't break it. So
I could break it.
I mean, it's just like I used to do like Flash websites, and you click something wrong, and the whole thing would just break. But with a video, it's just play and pause. So I was like, oh, that sounds way better. I'm gonna just
that's easy.
Do that shit.
Do you still play it all?
Nah, no. I have a guitar. When I first moved here 6 years ago, I would play it in my living room, and then I just kind of fell out of it the last couple of years. I think there's a point where I just had a conversation with myself, and I was like, you know what, man, I don't think you really are a musician anymore. Like, I don't think you really want to record and write songs, and I was forcing it, and I was like, you know what, you're right. I think I'm gonna do other creative things. So I was like, yeah. And every time I pick it up now, I play it for 2 seconds. I'm like, yeah, I'm just not feeling it.
And then your hand hurts. I get it.
Yeah. Then the tips of my fingers hurt because it doesn't have any callus built up anymore, and it sucks. And I realize I don't really know that many chords. I'm like, wow, I'm not really that proficient in this craft. So
when did your band break up?
2001, May of 2001. We were about 8 months out of being our last tour. Actually, well, this is kind of a connection to Chicago. Our last tour was with Lawrence Arms. And
yeah, I listened to part of Brendan's episode with you.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. That was the last time we went on tour. We played a bunch of reunion shows. We actually played a really awesome reunion show in 2018. So I'll do stuff like that here and there. But yeah, that I'm like...
Brendan's a character, huh? He's a good guy.
He is so funny. So so this is the structure of this podcast is I'm going to go back and talk about like the late 90s scene and when you started Thick and the Chicago scene and all that stuff. But where we are right now, it still makes sense because it's Chicago based. Did you ever listen to his Road to the Skeleton Coast podcast at all when it was on?
I haven't. I haven't really touched on many podcasts. That said, I'm a huge Bad Sandwich fan. I think that Brendan's incredibly talented. He's funny as shit, and I wish I could see those guys more. Actually, I think Neil lives out here now. I run into him every once in a while. But
yeah, I think he was playing with. My God, there was someone I interviewed. They were playing together. It was Jim from Slow Gherkin. Him and Neil have been playing.
Oh, that's very funny.
Yeah, so they were doing. I don't know. I don't know if they put anything out, but they were just like jamming together.
Great guy.
Yeah, so actually it's funny about Brendan. He just tweeted something yesterday. He's like, I'm old enough to say this. Are you on? I'm not really on Twitter, but I'll sometimes go on it just to post episodes for this.
I am on Twitter, and I follow Brendan. So,
Did you see his post yesterday about Papa Roach?
oh yes, how Papa Roach was great. That one song was undeniably hooky. Yeah,
So funny.
exactly. The best part about that thread is Laura Jane Grace coming back in and say some things you should keep to yourself.
I was just gonna say that. That was
and then
the
and then he
funniest
comes
shit.
back and says, "Trust me, I do," which is amazing.
He's like, oh, believe me, I do.
So, when I was probably 21 or 22 years old, and had just met Billy Spunke from the Blue Meanies, and we were driving together. We were talking about doing a Blue Meanies picture disc 10-inch on Thick Records. It was the first introduction between us. I must have been 22, and we had driven by I think Slapstick was playing the Fireside Bowl that night, and Brendan was outside of the Fireside Bowl, and he had his leopard hair. He used to have a shaved head with the spots tied in. Yeah. And Billy pointed out, he's like, that kid right there is Brendan Kelly. He's 16. He's going to be famous. I was like, yeah, you got it partially right. So I've known Brendan for a long time.
We always looked at Chicago as, I mean, I'll say we. That's a broad statement. I personally, and I think some people I've talked to, like, would look at Chicago, and there was just so many characters there. But I, like, respectfully, like, I never looked at Chicago and thought, like, oh, this is where that idiot comes from. Like, everyone from there, I was always like, wow, it's like this person's from there, and that person, or this band, and this band. And I always just had this massive respect for this group of characters from there. Like, this is kind of just jumping all around, but did you, like, when you were in it and saw that, and, like, you saw when Billy said, hey, there's Brendan, he's gonna be big one day. And I think Brendan, when he saw Tim from Rise Against play a Legion Hall show, he said the same thing to someone else. Like, there was this kind of, like, seems like there was this viewpoint from people out there that saw other people, and they're like, wow, that person's going somewhere, that person's going somewhere. Was that something that you kind of remember seeing back then?
Well, we kind of all knew each other. We'd all hang out at the same places. We'd all go see the same shows. I mean, we'd all be at the Fireside Bowl till 2 a.m. and then, off to the after hours joint. So, everybody was sort of around in part of that scene. Did I ever think that Rise Against was going to go on to sell millions of records? Not a chance in the world. I didn't think they'd ever want to, but, look at them now. It's unbelievable. The best part about Chicago, man, is all these people were yes, they're all characters, but they're all real. They're just great guys. Tim and Joe from Rise Against are great guys. They are the nicest guys in the world. I went to recently. I was at recently. COVID sort of distorts all timelines. But a few years ago, I was at the Forum for some show or other, and Rise Against was playing. And I ran into Tim in the Forum Club, the basically the VIP area or whatever it is. And it was just like, holy shit, man, haven't seen you in a while. He's playing the Forum, man, the fabulous Forum in LA. It's insane to me how that, how life plays out.
Did you see how many streams they got last year in 2021?
No.
They posted.
It wouldn't surprise me, but I'm assuming it's zillions, right?
Well, when I saw this, did you ever hear of a band called Midtown?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rob
I couldn't tell you what they sound like, but I've heard the name.
They blew up in, like, the real early 2000s, and they kind of went in. They were a big, like, drive-through band and stuff. So they had that poppy, I'd say a little bit, I don't want to say emo, but they so Rob, the drummer, he has this label called I Surrender Records, so he so this is something also that you would probably understand as well. So when I saw this graphic on Instagram, they Rise Against posted it, and they said, hey, it was an awesome 2021, thanks for listening. They had 354.4 million streams.
So they made a grand total of $153.06.
See, that's what I messaged Rob, and I said, how much do you think that they made? He's like, well, it depends on the deal and stuff. I'm like, yeah, but if you had to guess, and he was like, I don't know, maybe. And this is could be I know. So I'll say his guess, but what do you think that produces? How much money do you think that
I
produces?
think all of those guys are doing extremely well for themselves. I think that when you have 300 million streams, that you've got revenue coming in left and right. I what is it? Spotify's 0.0037 cents per stream. So
Yeah, something like that.
it's whatever. They're doing well. I mean, I think they're getting six figures for every show they play.
I mean, like when I saw that, because I thought, I mean, this is really what's going to connect to when you were doing the label in the beginning. I mean, there's such a difference in how you create revenue, especially like you could make money as a label back then, and now I'm like, how does this even happen? But Rob guessed, he's like, I don't know, maybe they got like $1 million out of that or something. I was just like, that's it, like, and that's again,
$1 million, that's it, man. I'd take like a bag of Doritos at this point.
Yeah, but for 354 million streams to only get $1 million off that, to me, that seems so low for a band that has that many listens. I don't know. I would think they would get more.
I'm imagining they probably did. But I'm sure they've got a major label share deal and are getting points on that stuff, but publishing the publishing royalties on those streams. I'm guessing the mechanicals alone probably doing them all right. I don't think they're worried about making rent next month.
Yeah,
at least I hope they're not.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating when you see that and you know how the machine works, and so you get to sit there and do the math and be like, what would they get? So on that note, let's go back to when you got involved in the Chicago scene, and we're kind of going to go up to there, and you starting the record, and then the record label and where that went. So how did you get involved in the Chicago scene? Was it like through the label, or were you involved in the scene first and then started the label?
No, I went to Michigan State University. I got involved in music my freshman year. I met these guys who were playing in basement and garage bands and ended up becoming really good friends with them. And sort of that was my introduction into the quote unquote music industry. They became my best friends, guys, from school. Started booking shows for them, doing short tours. We'd go out to New York and, play CBs and Stone Pony and things like that in Jersey.
Like with who? With what bands were you going with to do that?
Oh, this was us. This was us booking dates on our own in college. So it's a bunch of 18-year-old kids in college, going and booking one-off shows. The bands that we toured with at that point were unknown. I think one of them was Sons of Elvis, which was Dave Hill, who turned into a pretty popular comedian. but most of the bands that they did were, that they were on tour with, that we were booking shows with, were local bands that nobody has ever heard of since.
Wait, this was your band that you were in?
No. This is just friends of mine that it actually started off where I was at the drummer's house and he was trying to book shows, and I took a look at what they were sending out to venues, and it was so piss poor that I basically crumpled it all out and did it for them, and then made those calls for them and started booking shows. The next thing I knew, they were calling me their manager. So
how did you know to do that, though? Was this something that you had been doing, or you just like instinctually knew to do this?
This is wing it, man. This was let's make something that looks good and sounds better, and send this out and get a copy of our band or Book Your Own Fucking Life from Maximum Rock and Roll, and call these venues and see if they'll give us an opening spot somewhere. So that's where it started with me when I was 18. And then I was doing overnights at WDBM, the college radio station, with some friends at Michigan State. I then took an internship, I think my junior year summer, at Arista Records in New York. So I moved out to New York for about 6 months. My first real job was really an internship for Clive Davis at Arista Records.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's funny. I had a grand total in 6 months. I had a grand total of about 3 conversations with them, and they're usually about 7 words apiece. So.
Did you learn anything interesting at all that was like advice you could take away, or it was just like move out of the way?
Yeah, Clive Davis said the words to me: if you wanted, look, Zach, you can come work for me and work for BMG. You can bounce around from label to label, but if you want to make it the business, you got to do it yourself.
Interesting.
Yep. Great advice, Clive.
Wow.
So, as a 22-year-old, I moved to Chicago with the grand idea that I was going to start a record label, and the first record was going to be my friend's band that I'd been working with in college. So that's how it all started.
Did you have a vision of having your label be as big as Arista?
Oh, God, no. I didn't want to be a major label. I mean, obviously, I wanted to make enough money that we can continue putting out records and pay rent. But, I had I didn't want to be a major label. In fact, it's funny. I've listened to a bunch of your podcasts, and I didn't want to be Epitaph. I didn't want to be Fat Wreck. I really wanted to be Touch and Go. I didn't even want to be Discord. I wanted to be Amphetamine Reptile. I wanted to do weird, arty, gritty shit. And, that was sort of where I came from. We're considered a punk label, in name, but we really had a little something for everybody. But I based what I wanted to do on what Corey Rusk was doing at Touch and Go. I don't think I ever lived up to that, but that was the direction that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to do something that was more geared towards insane than, to the pop punk crowd.
So who was the first record that you put out?
First record was a band called Orange.
Orange.
Yeah, not the punk band Orange that ended up putting out a record on Epitaph. This was kind of a grungy metal band called Orange. These were my friends in college. We just did a one record. The second record I did was Judge Nothing out of Alton, Illinois. And those guys ended up becoming very good friends. Absolutely loved that band. They're kind of a power pop punk band. Weirdest dudes around from, this small town across the river from St. Louis called Alton, Illinois. That was a fun time. Third band that I signed was another Michigan State band called Calliope, and we ended up doing, I think, 6 or 7 records with them total. That was more of a space rock thing, a kind of shoegazer vibe, but again, ended up being just a fantastic band for the label for many years.
I guess the question is, you said you went to Michigan State, and a lot of people that I talk to, we start when they were some of them were 16 when they get involved in the scene stuff, but you're starting straight at Michigan State, and then you're talking about getting involved with your friends' bands and stuff, and then working in the city for a blip. Obviously, there's a lot of time in there, and there's a lot going on. What is the connection to Chicago? Did you grow up there, or did you just
No,
want to go there?
I grew up just outside Detroit. Chicago is basically the oasis of the Midwest. So anybody, who grows up in the Midwest who wants to go to the big city, we tend to go to Chicago, not New York or LA.
Or Detroit.
Chicago is a fantastic, beautiful city. Like I said, best city on earth, 3.5 months a year. So that's that, I wanted to go to the big city. I wanted to go to Chicago. I absolutely loved going out there, taking road trips to Chicago. We would go and see bands play at the Metro and strange venues like Avalon through college. So it was always my desire to once I graduated from Michigan, to get out of Michigan.
So what year is this when you signed Orange, the first band?
First record came out in October 1994. So it all started in 1994.
So this is this is right around, Green Day. I always get these. This is Green Day has been out or was out at this time, and Nirvana obviously was already blown up. So grunge is going on. So you're doing all this shit around then. So I don't know, what was your criteria?
Here's a good Green Day story for you. Yes,
great.
Green Day hit right then. They became huge. In fact, Green Day were on tour with Judge Nothing, the Alton, Illinois band, when they were looking and trying to name their Dookie album. And there's a great story with the Judge Nothing guys about how that album came about, or how the title of that album came about. It had to do with somebody shitting in a frying pan. True story.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, so that's how I started in Chicago. I got there, and it seemed like 5 minutes later was knee deep in the Chicago scene.
But what was your criteria when you were signing a band? What did you expect from them, or I don't know, what was the conversation?
It's a good question. I didn't have, I wanted to put out great music. I wanted to release great bands. I wanted to do something that was interesting and sort of off the beaten path. like I said, I wanted to do things that were more Jesus Lizardy than I did were Green Day. It was first and foremost, do I love this band? Do I love the members in the band? I wanted to make sure that we connected all those dots before getting together and doing these partnerships, which is really, when you're running an independent label, it is a partnership with bands. Obviously down the line, once you've been doing this for a while, but to start with, things change. But to start with, it was very much like, these are the people who I want to work and partner with. The first two, the Orange and Calliopes of the world, were people I knew from Michigan State. Judge Nothing was actually introduced to me from one of the other college marketing reps from BMG, who I had actually worked for my senior year. Said, hey, you got to check out this band, sent me their demo, and I called them up immediately because they're fantastic. That's where it started. But as far as the first few bands that we released, I didn't really start focusing on the Chicago music scene for a few years. We put out albums by Laurels out of Rhode Island and Geezer Lake out of Greensboro, North Carolina. We had Truly, who was out of Seattle. That was Robert Roth and Mark Pickerel, who had played drums in Screaming Trees, and Hiro Yamamoto from Soundgarden was in that band. We picked up Season to Risk after they had been dropped from Universal, reissued that album, put out a new album with them, and they were from Kansas City. A lot of the early stuff was not Chicago-based. I was big into picture disc vinyl as well, and that's where we sort of started into the Chicago scene more.
Yeah, I'm seeing this because I just put in a hashtag in Instagram, and when it comes up, all of the stuff is like this awesome picture disc. Like that's cool. Is that something you were pretty known for?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right off the bat, within I think the first or second year, I did a series of 7 sort of local bands, 7-inch picture discs, and just wanted to mix great art with great music. I continued doing picture discs pretty much the entire time I ran the label.
Was there a record that you saw that was a picture disc where you looked at it and you're like, oh my God, I have to just do a lot of my stuff on that?
Kind of. I mean, do you remember the band Big Chief out of Detroit?
I do not.
There's a band called Big Chief. They're on Sub Pop. Mark Dancy, who was an artist out of Detroit, had done a picture disc for him, and it was just awesome. It's like, also, it's easier. You don't have to do a lot of packaging if it's picture disc, because the picture disc is the packaging. So it is a little bit, while it's not inexpensive to do picture disc vinyl, it made things a little easier because you didn't have to do gatefolds and inserts. Yeah, so that was, there's stuff like, obviously, old school shit, Dawkins pictures. I just thought it was a great medium. It was fancy wax, as I called it. I reached out to bands like Not Rebecca, who were a local Chicago band. They're on Johann's Face record. Great pop punk band. We ended up their singer guitar player is a guy named Tom Coonhan, who we ended up doing several records with. And Tom, he's also a graphic designer, did a bunch of our record covers. That was a great relationship and a great record. We did a band called Back of Dave, who are also from Judge Nothing's hometown of Alton. They consider themselves St. Louis, but it was a early emo band that were right up there with the Mineral and Knapsack scene. Who else was in there? We did an Edsel 7-inch picture disc. We had done trying to remember. Speed Duster was another one in that series. We did Geezer Lake and Laurel's picture disc within that series. You can tell we did a bunch of pretty cool. Liquor Bike was another one that was in that series. We did a lot of vinyl right off the bat, and sort of became known for it pretty quickly. And that, by the way, that's what led to a Blue Meanies 10-inch, because they saw this great picture disc. They were like, we want to do one of these with Zak. So that became the relationship with the Blue Meanies. We put out a 10-inch picture disc and decided that we wanted to work together, and ended up making the Full Throttle record. Blue Meanies was our biggest band, our most important band.
Yeah, I love the story too, which we can get into later, about how when they left, oh my God, what was the major label they left?
MCA.
MCA. Well, yeah, when they left them, and then they had all of that someone sent all of the pressed CDs like to your address, and you guys just just repackaged it. I was like, that's
It
fucking
was
genius.
unbelievable. We were unwrapping the shrink wrap. We didn't mess with the top spine, so we were basically slipping in new back covers with a thick logo and barcode in it, so we could repackage and sell it. It was pretty amazing. Yes.
I know this is really jumping forward a lot, but like this story is so great. I think telling it here is awesome, however long it is. But the way Billy said it is that they left, and then someone must have been working for them. They had all this leftover stuff, and they sent it. They put the address, and they sent it to you. So you had how many thousands of CDs show up?
It was an entire pallet. It was thousands. It was ridiculous amount of CDs that showed up at our door.
So like, what was your reaction when that showed up? You're like, wait a minute.
I was thinking, hey, this is good. This is going to look really good with a thick logo on the back. No, at that point, Billy came and was really my second in command pretty early on. As soon as they got off they spent a year or two on the road behind that Full Throttle record. And when they got off the road, Billy became, basically captain of Thick Records. He was the one who brought in a bunch of our great bands. He brought in the Tossers and the Arrivals and the Gadgets, and he did the Oil Comp. That was his baby, which was amazing bands involved with that. The Magnetic Curses compilation. Did you ever hear Magnetic Curses or the Oil Comps?
No, I actually want to talk to that after we get through this one though. This story.
Yeah, absolutely. So Billy really, he because of his relationships with a lot of these Chicago guys led to a lot of Chicago bands on the label, and he spearheaded most of those releases.
So is that like what led you down the path of getting more involved with Chicago?
Oh, no. I mean, I was, look, man, I'm a music fan. So I was out most nights going to see whoever was playing Double Door or Empty Bottle or Fireside Bowl. I'm a music fan to this day. I like going out and seeing shows. So we're out all the time. I guess being a music fan led to working with those Chicago artists. We are all over the place, by the way. Good luck editing this thing.
Oh, this is, I just keep it all in. I just probably edit out some things, but so at this point, though, I know we're kind of jumping around, but I mean, the whole CD palette thing, that was like 2006, right, when that happened?
No, that was probably 2000. That was right after 2002, maybe.
Let me see.
They put out the New Wave record.
That's right. Okay, I read that wrong.
The post-wave record. And by the way, we did the vinyl for that as a picture disc, which is awesome. That was a great 12-inch LP on picture disc vinyl. But yeah, that shows up at our door, and Billy and I looked at each other like, yup. We'll sell these things, or at least try. It was a funny day. We had all the interns, slicing open records and swapping out packaging.
That must have been like one of those where that gut instinct kicked in. It's like, oh, I know exactly what to do with this, and then you just go for it.
Well, yeah, I think Billy had talked about this on the podcast you did with him, but the end of MCA was also, basically the end of the Blue Meanies. They were hoping to make it work. It didn't work. And they weren't going to go back to touring around in a broken down van for years at a time, making no money and playing for 100 people. That was great. Billy, was on board with Thick. I don't know if this came up, but at that point, so the Blue Meanies were kind of winding down, and MCA had dropped them and sort of dropped the ball on them as well. They had this record, nothing became of it. But they did spend a shitload of money on them. They had them on in the studio writing songs with Phil Nicolo and Jane Whelan from the Go-Go's and shit. I think at the end of that, Billy wrote, or it might have been Lance and Billy, wrote kind of a scathing letter to the major label saying, "Thanks for the millions, suckers." That sort of thing. They had, their manager was like, "You cannot let this go." And of course, Billy, we sent it out everywhere.
Oh, wow.
And they got a lot of press from it and a lot of interest because they were basically like, "So long, suckers. We're doing our own thing. We're back to exactly where we started and where we're happy." Yeah, I wish I had a copy of that letter. It was pretty funny.
See, like that was the funny thing about interviewing him is that he was such a reserved dude, and you could tell that he has these great stories like that. Someone messaged me this week, and they said at some show they like walked by, and the Blue Meanies were in a room, and they were like all in a circle, and they were reading passages from the Bible, but then they ripped a page out and ate it.
Yeah, you sure it was the Blue Meanies? That doesn't sound like that.
That's what he said. I was just like, I don't know.
I'm sure there are some serious drugs involved, but
I was like, I don't know, but I should probably tell this on a podcast, even though it might be false.
I never saw that. Those guys, that entire band, every version of that band, just great guys left and right.
Did you find yourself like with the bands that you were signing? Did they all have? And I always said characters before about Chicago, and it was more about there's something that people have where they just kind of stand out alone, where they've got just personality, not making that it's like goofy or anything like that, but they just kind of there's like a presence to them. And the Blue Meanies definitely had that, and I feel like a lot of Chicago bands had that. Like, did you find that the bands that you signed had some sort of presence surrounding them?
Oh, Billy, absolutely. But I'll tell you, those guys are the nicest guys in the world as well. Did I go seeking that out? No, I think that when you're dealing with artists and people who are trying to do something, unique, that you're going to get characters. I think this goes back to Billy. He's on tour with Real Big Fish, and here they're doing the song "Sellout," and he's has a million kids pogo dancing around. He's just looking at himself like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm trying to make art here.
Yeah.
That really resonated with me because that's exactly what we were trying to do. Our art and commerce are strange bedfellows. Obviously, we wanted to be somewhat commercially successful so we can continue putting out records. And in the long run, I went dead broke doing this thing. That's sort of a common theme. I think you're all of these indie labels that you've got podcasts with, we all kind of went broke doing what we love. Some of them are getting back into it, and I'm thinking to myself, like, "Ugh, you didn't learn the first time."
I think the same thing. I'm like, what? This has to be like kind of people that buy models, or I don't know, they just spend money on shit like Star Wars fucking toys or something. That's you're not. Well, I guess they could probably get it sell later on, but majority of people's hobbies, you're not going to get a return on investment. It's like you're just spending money to spend money, and I feel like that's the same way with a lot of these labels. I'm like.
There was nothing better getting a record back from the manufacturer and throwing it on the turntable the first time and listening and just being blown away by how good it sounds and how great the band is. That was my favorite part. And that's addictive, man. I get it. Every once in a while, I think, oh, man, I should start putting out records again. And then I look up and come down from my high and
that I just punch myself in the balls repeatedly.
Exactly. Reality kicks in, and I'm sleeping on the couch for the next week because my wife, can't believe I said that out loud. Yeah.
So what was like the day-to-day would look like when we were in the beginning of this whole thing? Where were you located, and how many people were working with you?
To begin with, it was just me and one other person. Actually, that's untrue. It was me and two other people to start with. My buddy from Chicago who had moved out was helping me do the bookkeeping and day-to-day stuff. A woman named Leela Adkins, who is Martin Adkins from Pill's ex-wife, she came and was doing some artist reach out. This was very early on. Again, I was 22 years old, just moved to Chicago. So those are the two people who were helping me out. We were in a loft in Lincoln Park at that point. I was only there for a year. But when we had moved, it was a three-story apartment with the top floor was the loft that we turned into the label. It's pretty great. I guess that's it's actually the loft where Guns N' Roses stayed when they made the Lose Your Illusion records in Chicago.
Really?
It is, yeah.
Holy shit.
Pretty funny, right? Yeah, it was across the street from the Big DePaul church there. When we moved in, everybody's like, "Oh, great, more music people."
So what was it like though? Like what was the day to day like? Was it exciting? Did it feel like a job? Like I don't talk about that.
Yes and no. I mean, we were sort of flying by the seat of our pants. I mean, I started this thing without a distribution deal, and in those days you needed distribution. I actually went out one of the first days going like, all right, I'll be back. I got to go find a distribution deal. And sure enough, found a distribution deal. Guy who I had known had worked for relativity and started off doing a label group, or wanted to do a label group on his own. Let's do it. I'm in. So I was one of the, and that was Symbiotic, a guy named Brian Stubbs, and it was his new venture, and I hopped on with him, and he distributed Thick for the first probably 5-6 years. We became pretty close. We moved into a warehouse office together after that first year. In that space, we had, I think, 6 or 8 people working in the office between Symbiotic and Thick. We had actually opened our own independent publicity office as well. Had the person who was running that was doing Thick exclusively, or not exclusively, but doing Thick releases. Plus, she was the publicist for DeSoto and Jade Tree and, a bunch of Vagrant stuff. So she was sort of in the scene anyway. So, yeah, I mean, there's 6 or 8 of us, and then a slew of interns were there all the time. I mean, people kind of hung out at the office. We had a foosball table. We it was a big ass warehouse. So people were skateboarding around it. We had friends coming and going at all times. But what was the day to day? Man, it was all right. Let's figure out a way to make great music and sell it. Now, I knew enough to know that we had to have, at least some publicity and some radio, and these bands hopefully would tour, because that was really the only way we were going to sell records, is if, they're out and about and people got to know their name. All these things had to work together, and that's where it came down to, is distribution, distribution, marketing, radio, record stores, having your stores, records on the shelves and available to buy. The idea of having some college radio, we definitely got spins on college radio stations across the country. Bands out there on the road, and having a distributor who's actively pushing the records. We ran it as a legitimate record label. We wanted to be successful in that we wanted to make enough money where we could, A, pay the rent, and B, put out the next record.
Do you think that, and I've talked to a bunch of labels and bands and things like that, when there's certain people I talk to, would they just had a direct focus of where they wanted to get to, and that helped them stay in it for a longer time and actually do pretty well. And then some of them just were like, we just kind of wanted to do it and really knew we were going, and it kind of didn't really go in any direction. They stuck around, but it didn't really work out. Did you find? No,
I was in the music industry. I understood the music industry, and that's I worked within the confines of that music industry.
So you were going in a direction though, like you had some kind of idea.
Absolutely. We were making a product, and we wanted to sell that product, even if that product was weird and somewhat unsellable. I mean, I mentioned Laurels earlier. Laurels, this weird ass band from Rhode Island, made a great record. You go back and listen. It's a weird record, man. Billy signed Vortis. I don't know if you've listened to the Vortis records, but that was Jim Derogatis, who is the music critic from the Sun-Times. He was also was an editor at Rolling Stone. He's the guy who actually broke the R. Kelly story. But he was the drummer in this band. Just a bizarre, the singer of that band was like 80 years old and, complete communist.
Oh my God.
Exactly. It was just weird, but it was cool. It was fun.
But when a band was presented to you, did you have this balance of, there's the art side of me that wants to put this out, but then there's the financial side of me that knows that this can't happen, or this is making a decision?
Absolutely. All the time, and I always, because my tastes were always a little weirder than, again, I wanted to be touch and go. I didn't want to be Epitaph. My tastes were more gritty than some of this easier to consume music. The idea that, well, can we sell enough records that this is actually going to break even and maybe even make the band a little money? That was always key. But, it is what it is. After doing it for so many years, and hindsight, always 2020. What I'm saying. It's like, sure, we wanted to sell records. We realized that to sell records, you had to spend money, and it was a constant. It was the snake eating its tail. The Blue Meanies, for instance. Blue Meanies probably sold 100,000 records.
Holy shit!
But we exactly.
Wow.
We had to. We kept we had to spend a shitload of money to sell 100,000 records. You know, we had to do all these marketing programs and radio programs and touring support. So, you know, while it was successful, it wasn't really a financial windfall in any way, shape, or form. So, you know, that was sort of just the independent record world in general, I think.
So if an independent band on an independent label sells like 100,000 records, to someone like me, I was like, wow, that's crazy. But in the inside, you're going, it really isn't that, I wouldn't say glamorous, but what's the word? Lucrative, I guess, because you're spending all that to make that happen. So at the end of the day, when you walk away with a profit on that, you're kind of like, I mean, I'm guessing there has to be a margin where you're like, yeah, it worked out where there's a bigger margin here where we made some money on it, but I don't know. Is it like just not as big as you'd think it would be?
Not nearly as big as you'd think it would be. You know, you're making as an independent label, we're trying to keep, you know, the cost of those records low. You're paying the distributor. You know, basically the distributor was then selling it to other distributors who was then selling it to the record store. You know, I think we were getting $5-6 a record sold if we were paid at all, by the way. And that, you know, that was always I can't tell you how much money, you know, never came back. In theory, we sold a shit ton of records. You know, in practice, we weren't paid for many of them.
That seemed to be like a big thing with record labels. They weren't getting like that back.
You know, our big distributors, you know, to start, you know, MS, Platinum Distribution, some of the one-stop, and then the small guys as well, Rots Records. You know, I'm sure this has come up with other people, but just because they ship, you know, several thousand records doesn't mean you get paid for several thousand records. You know, that's something that bands never quite grasp either. Well, wait a minute, you said you sold 2,000 records. Well, no, we shipped 2,000 records. You know, you know, if they've sold, that's great, but you know, until we get paid for them, you know, that's not a sale.
Interesting.
Right? I'm sure you've heard this before.
Oh, definitely.
All these other labels. It's exactly how it works.
It's so fascinating just to hear the different labels, what they went through. But there is that, I forget who I talked to recently, and they said the same thing, that they're like, yeah, we'd get fucked by distro.
Oh, I was listening to Rama's Big Wheels podcast. It's like, you know, that guy was as keyed into as anybody. And still, I mean, even with Dirk at the helm, who ended up having you know, his own distribution company, actually distributed Thick for a minute before they went under. Even they couldn't get paid by everybody. A lot of records went out. A lot of records got sold. A lot of money did not come back. Again, I went dead broke running a punk rock record label.
Did you get involved with the whole like Interpunk thing, like sending them stuff? Because I heard that they fucked over a lot of people.
I'm sure they did. Yeah, I mean, Interpunk always sold records for us. At a certain point, you just throw up your hands. It's sort of the same old story. I'm sure if Interpunk had the money to pay people, I'm sure they would have paid people. I'm absolutely positive that Interpunk didn't make $1 million and their owners walked away, you know, with bags of money. I'm sure they went broke doing what they were trying to do as well.
I heard something. I know this is all speculation, and it was someone had mentioned that Interpunk, there was some big thing where the guy who ran it like spent the money on some shit. There's like it like seemed like that was a different story where there was a lot more sketch happening on that end, and like drugs or I don't know what the fuck. I don't want to like I can't really go into it because I don't really have anything to back it. It's more of a hearsay thing.
Yeah, I have no information on them other than, you know, I know that they were trying, you know, for a long time. They sold a lot of records for us. Interpunk did. I don't know if they ever paid for those records, but you know, at least you know, got that music out there.
I actually have. I'm holding here the Burning Airlines At the Drive-In picture disc because I bought it.
Isn't that one great?
Oh my god, like Catacombs is probably one of my favorite At the Drive-In songs ever.
Again, the nicest guys in the world, just such an amazing band. That was an awesome split. Damon Locks from Trenchmouth did the art on it. You know, just that's a prize to have. Those are hard to come by.
Yeah, I bought this at Sound Exchange in Wayne, New Jersey in like '99, I think. It was right when Relationship Command was coming out, and I saw that it was like this, and there was another split that they did, which I didn't really like that song too much, but this song was my favorite.
Agreed. Absolutely loved it. When I first saw it at the drive-in, my jaw dropped.
Oh my God.
Like, holy shit, these guys are unbelievably good.
Yeah.
And they were so weird. That's not easy to consume music. That was right up my alley.
It was weird because in Casino Out, when I first heard it, I was like, what, ew, turn this off. And then I heard song 6 was like, and Now We Toast or something like that. And that sold me on in Casino. And then I just consumed the rest of that album. And then when Relationship Command came out, that was way more digestible because there was just so many hits on it. But they were fucking, the sound was fucking weird, but somehow they bridged that weirdness to digestible sound with
and live, their performance.
Oh, God.
Omar and Cedric, the two front guys, are just so good. That was a fantastic band.
How did you get to do that release?
The publicist that we had on board at the time was working, had DeSoto as well, which was the what's her face from Jawbox's label. They had Burning Airlines on DeSoto, and she worked with them, and it just became an opportunity. She also did the At the Drive-In. I think she was doing publicity for At the Drive-In as well. So it came through her.
Because that's like right when they had signed a Grand Royal.
Yep.
Before it went under, and so they were.
By
like,
the way,
popping
the
off.
Via record is the EP. That's my favorite At the Drive-In release.
Which one? Oh, Via.
Via.
Oh, fuck yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. When that one came out too, it came out of nowhere. My buddy had it in his car, and I was like, "What is this?" He's like, "Oh, it's the new At the Drive-In." I was like, "When did this come out?" It just like came out of nowhere. I feel like it was
so good.
Yeah, it's great. Like the first song, I can never pronounce any of their song titles either.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Love that band. Saw them when they did their reunion recently. As a middle-aged man, was fully in the pit. It was great.
Really? Holy shit.
Oh yeah, it was at the Palladium in Hollywood.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Just awesome.
Yeah, I got to see them one time when they played with Jimmy Eat World in Coney Island High, and it was one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life. It was so fucking great.
I mentioned Damon Locks from Trenchmouth. I think that was 7-inch was what led to us doing that Trenchmouth retrospective, that compilation album. Trenchmouth is another great band. That's Fred Armisen was the drummer.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Trenchmouth is that they were just so weird too. Again, this stuff was on the edges, and I loved it. I thought it was just great. Yeah, if you haven't heard Trenchmouth, go. And I wish I had a box of CDs to send you now. Not that you have a CD player anymore.
I do actually. I have one in my Jeep. I have one in my Jeep. So when I found my old booklets of CDs, my mom gave them to me. Like she had them in her house or something like last year or 2 years ago. I was like, oh my God, I can play these. So I play them when I'm driving around in my Jeep. It's the best thing ever.
Right?
Yeah. It's the sound quality is so fucking great.
It's true. My daughter is 14. She's just now discovering punk rock. She, she's asking me to go and buy her, Pixies LPs, which to me is absolutely no problem. And then she comes in my office and she realizes that there's thousands of CDs on the shelves, and she's like, "Holy shit, you've got a great music collection here."
You're like, "Yeah, I own a label."
And it sounds a lot better.
Oh my God, it sounds so much better. I'm just kind of jumping all over here, but you said the oil comps.
So Billy, we basically turned an oil production factory in the south side of Chicago into a studio and brought bands in to do singles for it.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was very cool. And it was a working oil factory. So we're doing it after hours and on the weekend. And we had bands like Rise Against and Lawrence Arms and Alkaline Trio and Local H and The Dishes and Owls and Tom Daly and all these bands come in one per day and come and record a new song. And it was great. Just a very, very cool compilation.
That's an awesome idea. Holy shit.
Yeah, so Lance Reynolds, who is the Blue Meanies sound guy, kind of the eighth meanie, he's a sound engineer and had a mobile setup, and we set it up in the loft at this oil production company. It's crazy. Because if you listen closely, you can hear things like trains going by in the background, as bands are playing. It was pretty cool, man. That was a lot of fun to do.
So how many of those did you put out?
That one was very unique. Once I moved to LA, I had the idea, Lance had set up a studio in, sort of this shitty loft in Chicago. It was above this old school barbershop. And we were trying to do something similar where people would go into Lance's studio on the day, record a song, and we called it Hair. So that was the same vibe. And that had, Methadones and Alistair and gosh, what was Tim Rise Against
Baxter?
No, it was the metal band. Gosh, I'm totally blanking on the name.
Tim was in a metal band?
Oh yeah, it's great. Give me a second, it'll come to me. I'm looking to see if I have the Hair comp anywhere near. Hold on for a second. I was away. I was in LA. Lance was in Chicago. Billy was in Arkansas. So it wasn't really as fun to do. It was, we did it in the winter too. So it was cold and kind of dreary, and it just, it didn't held the same. It didn't turn out as good as Oil. Now the songs on it, sure, there's some great songs, but that Oil comp was very, very unique. But Billy had actually done that Magnetic Curses comp, which was, I think like 30 bands or something, really as a documentary of the Chicago punk scene at the time. I actually listened to that earlier today. That's another unbelievably good compilation. If you haven't heard it, you should grab a copy or listen online. Bands like Mary Tyler Morphine and Muchacha and The Bomb. Blue Meanies had a track on there. Alkaline Trio. The Nerves were on there. The Traitors. Just a shit ton of great Chicago punk bands. That was those two compilations that Billy did, Oil and Magnetic Curses, I think really did a great job documenting the Chicago punk scene at that time.
Yeah, because it says that it was released 2003. Is that correct?
Which one? Oil or Magnetic Curses?
Oil.
2002, 2003 sounds about right.
Okay, so yeah, it says February 11th, 2003. This is also Discogs, so I don't know how accurate Discogs is.
Oh, The Killing Tree. Oh, no. Holy Roman Empire was Tim's other metal band.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of that.
Really cool. There's a song on that Hair comp. If you can pull it up online, take a listen. It's very cool. Magnetic Curses, I think, was 99 or 2000 that we did that.
When did Thick officially start? 94?
1994, yeah.
So 94, so then you, and I always talk about this, like you saw that transition into the whole digital thing where the downloads and all that started to happen. How did that have an effect on you guys?
Fucking wrecked us, man. Yeah, and it wasn't Napster that killed us. You want to know what really killed the music industry to begin with?
Yeah.
Remember those colorful iMacs? The second generation, they had like the blue and purple and orange ones.
Yeah.
The second generation of them came with a writable CD drive. So Napster was great. You could download your song and listen to it on your shitty computer speakers. But as soon as you could transfer that to a CD, which was the popular format at the time, it was game over. So by 2007 was the last records that I officially put out. And that was the Broke Downs and 7 Story Mountain. It was like pulling teeth to get records on store shelves. We ended up shipping next to nothing on those. Stores were closing left and right. And yet everybody I ever talked to seems to have both of those records. It's because there's a whole generation out there where music was free for them. It was as simple as, pulling songs off of LimeWire, putting it on your CD and taking it with you in the car. That was the game changer. That's where I think that things really started to decline.
So how do you think that was different from VHS tapes and like cassette tapes being able, like VHS tapes was a big production to record a VHS tape from a video store, but cassette tapes, that was easy to record a full like album onto another tape of like a blank tape or do like mixtapes and things like that. Like, why do you think it was so different?
Well, sure. I mean, but you still had to have you had to have the original to make a copy of it. You had to buy, somebody had to buy that original to make a copy of it.
Oh.
So sure, you could go and tape songs off the radio for free, but that always sucked. But that's yeah. The fact that for a while there, everything ever made was free online that people could then go and burn on their shitty iMac. That was great. I love the idea of being able to listen to whatever you want, whenever you want. But like I said, there's a whole generation out there that didn't know you were supposed to buy music. Those kids, those millennials are now, they're eating up vinyl. So I guess they're making up for it. But who knows?
I mean, was there a point when you saw that? Like, do you remember a moment being in the office and it's like 2001, 2002 or something like that, and you had this aha moment like, oh God, we're fucked?
Yeah, it was more like 2003 when that second generation iMac came out, and I got it and realized how easy it was to download anything I wanted and put it on a CD and take it with me. And I was like, this is a game changer.
Oh shit.
Why am I going to go out and pay for music that is free online? Me, obviously, I want to support the artist, but why is some kid who has no money gonna scrounge his pennies to buy a CD when it's right here for him for free, and you can have the entire catalog in a matter of an hour? Right?
Yeah. I mean, I was that kid. Like I was 19. I remember being in my buddy's college dorm room, and he goes, "Yeah, I've got this Napster thing," and we're listening. I was like, "Wait, you can just get any song you want?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Holy shit!" But I remember though. I mean, I still went out and bought CDs because it was. I think what for me when what really got me to stop. I mean, even when I had an iPod, I was still downloading. I was paying for full albums on iTunes,
sure,
and things like that.
You and I both, but you didn't necessarily have to.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when Spotify came out, I was like, "Oh, fuck it."
You're older though. It's not when you were doing there was younger kids who didn't already have, weren't collecting records,
Yeah.
Part of having that physical record, having that collection and having people come over and be able to browse through your records and take a look at your music taste. Shit, man, that was you could go to somebody's house and figure out who they were pretty quick by their record collection,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
That girl came over to your house. If she didn't know who Fugazi was, get the fuck out. There's a lot of those, but then all of a sudden, it wasn't available, and those kids didn't have a record collection. Why would they? They'd just burn it. They'd have it. And yeah, of course, the iPods came out, and you could download music and put it on there, and there's the iTunes store. But sure, I spent a shitload of money on digital albums. It doesn't mean that all those digital albums I couldn't have just grabbed off of LimeWire at any time.
Did you when you saw that though? Did you almost want to go, all right, everyone, let's stop for a second and reassess what the fuck's happening here?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like the boiling, the frog in water. You dump a frog into boiling water, it's gonna hop right out. But if it's in the water and you start it to a slow boil, it's gonna stay in there for a while. And that was us at these independent record labels. We were in it, man. This was fun. I didn't want to stop doing what I was doing just because, it wasn't going to be, I thought we could find a way to make money. By the end, it was simply untenable. And, those two final records, by the way, those two records, the Breakdowns record, great punk band from Chicago, and Seven Story Mountain from Arizona. Love those albums, just fantastic albums. But we didn't sell any of them. We made some, but we didn't sell them. And again, it seems like everybody has them.
So, I interviewed Lewis from Hopeless, and they're still a label. And I remember in the beginning, they were the punk label that they'd have bands on it, but I felt like some of the bands weren't as big as, let's say, hit as hard as Fat Wreck Chords bands or Epitaph bands. Those are the big.
Well, yeah, those two are different. But for instance, Hopeless, the difference between what I was doing with Thick and some of those other labels is they had, Hopeless had AFI, and they had the hit. They had these records that sold a shit ton of records. Even the small guy, like Mike Park at Asian Man. Mike's just a wonderful human being. I'm not sure if it wasn't for Alkaline Trio, if he would have been able to continue doing what he was doing. Obviously, he had, some of this other stuff that family of bands, continues to sell. But that kept him in the game for a long time. Less Than Jake was part of that, I mean, look what happened to Lookout after they lost Green Day and Op Ivy. It was the big records that kept the small label, allowed them to keep putting out records. While we had the Blue Meanies, Blue Meanies weren't AFI. Blue Meanies were still a weird art punk band with horns. So it wasn't like, while they had a very dedicated following, we weren't selling a million copies like some of these other bands.
I mean, you think about it too. If you go on Epitaph or Hopeless, you go on their websites, like the roster of bands, if you compared that sound that's happening to the sound in the original label, it's like they rebranded basically. So they just some bands some labels were like, all right, we're gonna kind of morph and advance and kind of, what's the word, take on a new sound so we could stay alive and keep going, and it worked for them. I think at some labels at the point had to be like, I'm not fucking doing that, or they're like, sure, we're gonna totally do that.
I always wanted to work with great musicians, great people making great music. So, I wasn't looking for a specific sound. I had something for everybody across, the Tossers, while they're considered an Irish punk rock band, I mean, they're really folk singers. A guy like Tom Daly is writing indie pop songs that are akin to Guided by Voices. Early on, I did Commander Venus. That ended up being pretty good. That ended up being Connor Oberst from Bright Eyes, and the brothers from The Faint, and Tim Kasher from Cursive, and Rob, who ended up running Saddle Creek Records. I mean, but that band was as gritty and weird as you can get, with just unbelievably good lyrics. These are the things that I was always looking for sort of those outliers. Proud of what we did. The commercial aspect, Thick Records was never commercially successful like some of these bigger labels, like the Hopelesses and Fats of the world. I loved every minute of it. I really did. I had a great time doing Thick.
Was Local H on your label when they had the hit and the video?
The band that keeps it copacetic? No.
Yeah.
No, that was a major label release with on Island. I think it was Island. And then Local H is still around. By the way, the last Local H record, maybe their best. I mean, they continue to tour and continue to pack a small club. I only did an EP with them, the No Fun EP, which was 5 or 6 songs. But it was an honor to be able to work with that band. I love those guys. I think that it's a 2-piece. I'll take Local H over the White Stripes any day. Yeah, the copacetic song, the Bound for the Floor, that album was 94. That was right when we got started. I actually met Scott Lucas at the Empty Bottle one night when I had first moved to Chicago, and that song was all the rage. And we're having many, many drinks at the end of the bar, and he walked up and I introduced myself, and good guy, real good guy.
So before I start winding this down and wrapping it up, you guys put out a lot of releases. At what year would you say you had the most releases happening at once?
Probably 2000, 2001. We had people were interested in what we were doing. We started gaining some momentum at the late 90s, early 2000s with Billy on board. The Arrivals were this new band that were just great, and the Tossers, and we kind of had this little scene around Thick, and things started to move, and we had more opportunities to put out more records. I don't think we ever did more than 5 or 6 records in a year. I never wanted to put out records that I couldn't support, or at least have some press support and radio support and people talking about the record. We never went gangbusters on numbers of releases, but I would say our momentum really kicked in probably 2000, 99, 2000, 2001.
I mean, if you have 5 releases come out, you got to put a lot of energy, the majority of energy on that to get it onto the shelves and in people's faces. But then you also have this whole back catalog where you have bands that are still possibly touring and things like that. Like,
well, I didn't want to put out a record and do nothing behind it. The record wasn't going to sell itself. We did have to do some work behind it. We had to go out and make sure that it was on record store shelves. We had to make sure that people knew it was out there. We had to put some ads in Punk Planet and Alternative Press or wherever else. We had to, send it out to college radio and some of the specialty shows on commercial, hoping to get a spin or two, and people might discover a new band that way. We did our best to get bands on the road and support them on the road, make sure that venues had posters and people coming to the shows to discover those bands.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, that's what I'm saying is that when a band comes out, you have, like, you're doing all that stuff, and then you have these other bands that you did that with a couple years prior, or the year prior. So it's like, it's got to be weird to find that balance, because there's only so much focus you can have personally, and that's why you have to have a team and say, like, all right, like, we need to divide and conquer here. But when these newer bands come out, you got to go full throttle and get them in front of people's faces. But then you have these other bands behind you. Like, at what point does that become?
Well, the goal was always to develop bands. We didn't just want to sign new bands, to put out new records. We wanted to put out a record and then put out a second record and a third record and a fifth record from the band. You know what I mean? We wanted to help develop these bands. Obviously the goal was to sell records and help these bands sell records and maybe get them to the next level. We weren't throwing shit at the wall. We were doing
No,
things.
I mean, I'm saying, like, it's got to be a lot to have that much happening where it's like, it's got to be a little overwhelming at some point where you're like, fuck.
It was never overwhelming working records. What was overwhelming was the financial aspects, as you just were seeing money go out and not come back in. Or you'd have a great shipment of records and you'd be expecting money to be able to pay for the next shipment of records. And all of a sudden you get a huge return from whatever Tower Records when they go out of business. And all of a sudden your $100,000 that you thought you were getting this month disappears.
Oh my God.
That was the stressful part, the
Jesus.
financial part. Yeah, man, it was, that's part of the record business. When you're an independent, it's flushing money down the toilet.
Wow. Oh my God.
I mean, at a certain point, you just open the window and start tossing, bills out.
Jesus.
I'm telling you.
I know,
broke.
it sounds like it. Wow.
By 2008, I was done. I mean, it was stressful.
So that was basically, there was no real, there was no decision to make in 2008. It was like made for you at that point.
So in 2006, I moved to LA in 2004. I was done with winter. It was after 10 years in Chicago, and we built a name. Billy had bought a house in Arkansas and moved his family down there. I was just done with winter. I was done with the city and decided to go where the sun shines most days. 72 and sunny almost all the time. I had moved to LA, and that was weird. For 10 years, I'd built this sort of reputation and name in Chicago. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't a big fish in Chicago, but people knew my name. Didn't wait in line at the Fireside Bowl to go see a show. Knew most of the bartenders and door people. So it wasn't like you're paying for beers. So I came to LA, where I was a very small fish in a huge pond. It was eye-opening. I did get recruited to run a kids rock and roll fantasy camp in 2006. Somebody had this program. They ran a camp, sort of put it together. It was successful, and he just needed to take it to the next level. Didn't really know what to do, and we had talked about it, and I kind of volunteered myself. So I became executive director of this kids program where, it was a fantasy camp for kids. It was pretty great, and recruited all my friends from all of the bands to come in and produce these kids over the summer. And they didn't have camp counselors; they had producers. It was great. So that's I spent I sort of pivoted my focus in 2006, was doing that pretty much full time with the label on the side. 2000, and that was 2006 and 2007. And then 2008, I moved up a notch and ran sales for the adult version of Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, where dudes pay $10,000 to go party with rock stars for a week.
Oh, shit.
So Yeah, November 2008, I'm sitting at Abbey Road Studios in London with Nick Mason from Pink Floyd and 20 different rock stars. We had Bill Wyman from the Rolling Stones and Earl Slick, Bowie's guitar player, and just that caliber of musician, hanging out. Next thing you know, Lehman Brothers is collapsed and the Dow is at 5,500 and I'm out of a job and dead broke. So, yay! That was my end of the music industry.
Holy shit!
That was where I hit rock bottom, and been building my way back ever since.
Holy shit!
I don't regret anything.
Do you still have like any like releases that you have in like boxes, or I don't know, just like a storage unit of shit?
Oh God, dude, I've got a garage filled with records that either shipped back or never sold at all. There's a lot of dust on those records at this point, though. Again, I haven't put out a record really since 2007. Billy had a side project of his own called the Holy Shakes out of Arkansas that we slapped a thick logo on and did some distribution on the 12-inch for. And that was, I think, in like 2009, maybe 2011. I don't remember. Yeah, I whatever, but that wasn't a real release. That was just more of a fun something to work on.
So if someone came to you today and they're like, hey, we want you to do some kind of release again, you'd be like, absolutely not.
Never say never. No, I mean, look, every once in a while you get that bug. Here's the genius part about it is while I used to be this jaded and cynical record industry guy, now I'm just a giant music fan. So I go out and see shows all the time, and it's like I'll go to the front and say, I don't want any part of a VIP section. Fuck those people. I want to be up front and center. I want to experience a band. I want to experience that music my own way. I've become a much bigger music fan in the last several years than I think I was towards the end of Thick.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, man. I go see a lot of shows, and it's a lot of fun to do so.
Well, cool, man. Well, I think that's a good place to end it. I mean, so I've been asking this lately, and this before I asked the last two questions in it. Do you have any like story that you've always wanted to tell? It could be funny or whatever you ever choose that you feel like this is a great story.
I didn't tell enough good stories?
No, these are great stories. These are fantastic. But like just one more of anything that you're like, I always wanted to tell this one story, or this is really funny. I don't know. I just gotta ask it, and it could go either way.
We did a New Year's show because we're January now, just the beginning of the new year. We did a New Year's show. I think it was it might have been the year 2000 at the Fireside Bowl, and it was the Tossers and Tom Daly and Haymarket Riot and. There's maybe I don't remember all who played, but there's maybe 5 or 6 bands, and we had a big ass party at the Fireside Bowl for $5 to get in, and it was a blast. But as people are wont to do on New Year's Eve, a lot of drinking. Unfortunately, a young punk passed out with his pants down on the Fireside Bowl toilet. Now. I don't know if you've ever been to the Fireside Bowl.
I have.
Have you ever been in the bathroom of the Fireside Bowl?
Is that in the bar area?
No,
it's the back, but opposite of the stage, right?
Yes.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
It is fucking disgusting. So, I actually, people always talk about CBGB's in New York and how gross that bathroom was, and it was so punk rock. CBGB's was like walking into a palace compared to the Fireside Bowl. So this poor schmuck who passed out on the toilet taking a shit at the Fireside Bowl, somebody was just smart enough to snap a photo of.
Oh no!
And that photo got passed around Chicago for a good many months until that poor soul started calling the office saying, "You've got to help me get this picture offline." It was pretty funny.
Oh,
anyway,
that's awful.
Great story. I'm so sorry to that one kid. And he's probably listening now, and he's probably middle-aged and has kids of his own, and is just thinking like, oh my God, I was that guy who passed out on the fireside bowl toilet with my pants down on New Year's Eve in the year 2000.
Oh, God.
Disgusting. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's I guess a good place to
it's a pretty good story,
to
man.
leave it off.
I'm now I want to go and Google it, see if I can find, guy passed out in fireside bowl bathroom.
Guy passed out.
Yeah, I dare you to find me a worse bathroom in the world than the fireside bowl. I mean, that was some third world shit in there, man.
I feel like I would have remembered that we played fireside a couple times, and I feel like that would have been a bathroom. Because I remember when on tour, I loved going into the grossest bathrooms and taking a crap. I was like, this is my thing. I'm gonna find the grossest bathroom and just do that. I don't know why. I think I was.
I hope it wasn't you passed out on New Year's Eve.
No, it definitely wasn't me.
Fireside bowl with Hammer. Hammer was the bartender. It was just those were the days, man. I absolutely miss the fireside bowl and going there every day. Hanging out at the bar, I'd look over and Matt Skiba would be having a drink, or have the guys from 90 Day Men having a meeting at the table behind you. Just a great place, man. What a great scene, great venue. I missed that tremendously.
Yeah, I love Fireside. Was one of my favorite places. I luckily got to play there. Like I never gave a shit about CBGBs. I really didn't, and never got to play there. But I never really cared. But Fireside to me was way bigger.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, look, bands, the Ramones and Talking Heads played, CBs. But Slapstick and Alkaline Trio played Fireside Bowls. So you take your pick.
Yeah, that was my scene. Like that I cared more about that than grew up in Jersey. I was right over the river from CBs, but I was like, yeah, I'd rather go all the way to Chicago to see this Fireside place.
What was it? There was in Jersey, not the Stone Pony, but there was another kind of gritty club there. With a similar name.
In
Asbury Park.
Oh, Asbury Lanes?
Was that it?
Well, there's the convention center, there's Stone Pony.
It was small. It was a really small club, and they booked punk bands, and it was always debaucherous, and I can't remember the name of it.
There was like the Brighton Bar or something like that, or I should probably.
And the guy who ran it also managed some of those giant estates that were in Asbury Park that were all shuttered.
Oh, and Deal.
So the bands would go and then sleep in these like palatial estates and hang out at the pool the next day all hungover.
Yeah, that's the town like right next to it. I think it's Deal. It's where Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah. Anyway, those were fun times, man.
Yeah, I think it's only Asbury Lanes and Stone Pony. Like I don't know. Of this
maybe it was
venue.
Asbury. I thought it was.
It's an old.
I thought it was a play. I don't remember. This is again. I was a wee lad back then. I barely remember what we were talking about 15 minutes ago. What do I know about 1994?
Wait, was it Wonder Bar?
No.
Okay.
It might be, but I'm totally blanking.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a majority of people listening to this are Jersey folks, so they're probably like yelling the name.
Well, let's change that, man. Let's get some international people listening.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to get this thing translated to German.
Actually, no, I do get some hits overseas. I actually get a decent amount of hits, but like this thing started focused strictly on New Jersey, so the main audience.
I love it, man.
All right, well, I'm going to end this with 2 questions. One, what would you like to plug? It could be about something you're doing. It could be something about a friend's doing. It could be both.
Oh, man, I don't have anything to plug. Just take care of yourself. It's weird out there these days. I want to get through this weird pandemic. If everybody could just sort of come together and, take care of one another, I think we'd be in a lot better place.
Yeah, actually, I have COVID right now. I forgot to mention that. I'm like on.
Oh, dude, come on! You're gonna spread it through the Skype meet.
That's right. I'm gonna just blow digitally through. It's the new digital virus.
Are you feeling all right? You're not.
Yeah, I got the finger air quotes, the light one. I'm on day 6, but I think this is the Omicron one because I just woke up feeling like shit on Friday, and I was like, oh, I think this might be it, and I took a test, and the moment I took that, it blew up.
By the way, Omicron has nothing on the Fireside Bowl bathroom. Like if you can survive the Fireside Bowl bathroom, like COVID is small potatoes. It's that shit was gross.
I'm sure that's like a meme in the ham salad or the there's a fireside Facebook group. Yeah, so I'm sure that must have been a meme in there.
The Hammer Fiend Club?
No, what is it? It's like the ham. Who's the guy who did all the fireside shows?
Brian Peterson?
Yeah, so he runs it. Yeah, it's the Ham Salad Days. It's the name of the Fireside Bowl Ham Salad Days.
I like it.
Yeah, you check that out.
Ham Salad Days. Again, man, Hammer, that guy is unbelievable. Hammer in his Southern comfort. God bless him.
All right, man, last question. What scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
Oh, man, I mean, I think that having that punk rock ethic, that integrity, the do-it-yourself ethic, I could never really go and work for somebody else again. I need to do it myself. Even in the big corporate world where I work for, I don't have a manager, and I don't think I could. So that's sort of where I come from. I want to do it and do it well and do it right and do it myself.